Welcome to a look at the biopsychosocial approach to pain and pain recovery. As I said in previous videos, we often used to think of pain as much more simplistic than it actually is. And what we now know is there are many, many factors that are involved in what is happening in your pain picture. And this is the biopsychosocial model of pain. And it includes the bio, which is really the biological, what's going on with the body, and we'll cover a bit more of that in a minute. The psychological, the psycho, it doesn't actually mean that you're completely psycho, although some days it does feel like that. And the social aspects of it is, you know, what's happening in your home life, what's happening at work, what's happening in your community. So what we've got on here is, from a biological perspective, is excess load, tissue pathology. So it may be that you have pain that is related to arthritis, but what we know about x-rays of people who are pain-free is often they're showing the same results as people who've got pain. So we therefore can't totally attribute pain to the tissue damage, but we do need to take it into consideration as to what's going on, and as I say, whether that is sort of excessively loading your tissues. The other thing about pathology is we do need to rule out anything that is more sinister, and we will cover that in another video. So we've also got, you know, that your system is not functioning as fully as it could. You know, we all know when we've got a cold or we've got flu or something, we have aches and pains. And so we can have disruption, you know, due to dehydration and temperature and inflammation. So nociception is when there is pain related to or is up fibers that is related to stimuli and is perceived as discomfort. And again, we need to put that into the equation. That's more often relevant in more acute pain conditions rather than the long-term conditions. And we also do need to look at genetics. So genetics, you know, there are people who have predispositions to certain conditions more than other people. Now, what we know with the more latest research about epigenetics is that we don't necessarily have to display the features that are displayed within our genetics. If we look after ourselves, if we modulate the way that we live and behave, actually we know that this can change some of the genetic expression. So it's not like, oh, I've got these genes, I got them from my mother, I'm definitely going to have this disease. And so, you know, oh, my mother had back pain, I'm going to have back pain. That actually now turns out to be not the case. So those are the sort of the biological considerations. We kind of again look at that as load, you know, what's in your backpack, what are you carrying? But what we also know is that psychological events and stress can actually influence things like inflammation. So the more stressed or distressed your body is, essentially, the more likely you are to have inflammation. And what happens in certain autoimmune conditions is that we have possibly a genetic predisposition to that. We then get really, really stressed due to events in our lives. And actually, that's what tips us into then displaying these conditions. So if we can keep our bodies in a really good state of health, then very often we don't, as I say, necessarily have to display these genetic diseases. So moving on to the psychological factors, our thoughts and beliefs about pain are really important. If you, again, this has happened, therefore this is going to be the result, that's your true belief. It's really hard to come away from that and get new beliefs, and that's the struggle with this this platform and this course and the education and the knowledge, is that actually sometimes our beliefs are really set in, and so you know, maybe approach this with an open mind and see whether the information is helpful or not. But what we know is, as I say, what we truly believe and think about our pain and our illness actually then will become more apparent. Whereas if we can change that focus and start to feel safer about what's going on and start to feel not so triggered, not so worried about it, actually it makes a huge difference to the nervous system. And then it can actually reduce the pain levels. So that's something that we'll be looking at in the understanding yourself and understanding your pain modules as we go forward, because essentially it's a really key part of recovery. Again, and that comes with knowledge, and what we hope to bring to you is that knowledge, the latest sort of neuroscience, is really challenging what we used to think about pain. And so as we go on, we'll bring you more and more of that so that we can understand about the context, about all the factors that are influencing your pain, rather than I had an injury and this is the result of it. Again, that prediction, that feeling that, you know, oh, I'm sure this is going to end up, you know, this is, as I say, my mother had this, I'm going to have this. Those sorts of things, again, do influence the way the nervous system reacts, and it does increase the sense of danger. And we will come back to talking about danger a lot over the time, because when our system feels under threat, it goes into that fight or flight space. And essentially then our body starts to get ready for action. It's got to either run away or fight. And so essentially what it does is it has a tendency to increase the tension in the muscles. And when we increase the tension in the muscles and it stays prolonged for a long, long period of time, then again, it starts to be more uncomfortable. And then we experience stiffness, and then we start to get into a cycle that is not very helpful. The other aspect of the biopsychosocial model is the social aspect of it. And as many of you know, over the last few years, it's been incredibly stressful. You know, not being able to see family and friends, not being able to get the care that you need, not being able to socialize, not being able to get out with your community. And for a lot of people who've never experienced anxiety before, that this has been quite anxiety ridden. And essentially these factors, again, they're all feeding back into the nervous system. They're all feeding back into that, whether we're safe, whether we're not safe, whether we feel, you know, sort of nurtured by others, whether there's others are there to kind of co-regulate our nervous system and allow us to feel more relaxed. And so these are all, again, important factors. What's also important in this is you know, when we get stressed about our job, are we having an unpleasant time at work? Have we got a, you know, co-worker or a family member is really triggering to our system? And so these are all, again, you know, little bits of the jigsaw that we need to put together to see how our system responds when it's under pressure, essentially. So this biopsychosocial model essentially is a way of looking at, again, all the factors, and the way we bring this into the program is in the backpack. So we will look at what's going on in your system, again, whether you have had injuries from that biological perspective, whether you are suffering with anxiety, or whether you've had something go on in your social circumstance or work circumstance that has been really triggering. So we will, over the next couple of modules, really dig into this a little bit more deeply so that we can find what's important to you.